Alright, welcome to Photoshop, and today we're just going to show you the basic tools on your left. You're going to be using these tools a lot, so let's start from the top left with the Move tool. Basically, this moves a layer around. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. The Selection tool, uh, left click, drag, you can modify whatever's in the selection. So you can delete a part, you can use the Move tool, as previously shown, to move that specific piece. You can duplicate it. Yeah. You have other options too. You can use the elliptical tool. So if you want to use like a circular selection, you can. There's rows and columns. Those are also pretty useful. You can access all these options by just clicking right click on the tool. And then you get these sub options. Now let's move on to polygonal lasso. Basically, this is a more complex version of the rectangular selection we have. But instead, we draw a couple of lines. I'm trying to get rid of everything but the foosball table. So I'm going to connect this piece here, and we can get rid of that selection. There is the lasso tool, which is more hand-drawn selection. So you can draw with the cursor. Then there's the magnetic lasso tool, which it will connect to certain pieces of the picture. So you can see that if I go over this edge, the selection will try to stay on that edge. I gotta get rid of this. Just give me a second. Okay, there we go. Before we go on to the next tool, I want to show you guys the different selection options you can use for these tools. So right now I have like add one selection, which only makes one selection, but there's add two selection, which means you can add more after you're finished making one selection. So I make one here, I make another one over here, like that. With the previous option I had on, you can only make one singular selection, so that tool might be useful. Then we have the subtract selection, which if I make another triangle here, it will take whatever was in that selection out of it. Then we have interact with selection, which if I combine two different selections together, it'll only select the ones that interact with each other. So here's another example. If I want to make a star, you can do so with the interact option. All right, cool. Okay, one more selection tool, and it's called the quick selection tool. Basically, you just brush on the picture, similar values will become selected, and you just do whatever you want with it. You can change the brush size, the hardness. I'm not sure if you can really do anything with the hardness for the selection tool because you're just selecting similar values of yellow, which stand out from other colors, to help select only specific parts of the picture. You do have the ability to subtract from the selection, similar to the other selection tools. So yeah. The frame tool is basically a placeholder for images, but if you select a image within Photoshop, it will become that frame. However, if you choose the crop tool, the selection you make will become the size of the picture overall. So if I shrink the canvas, move it over here, shrink it a little more, hit enter, that is our canvas now. Let me try again. This time I'll scale this up. Now it's only focused on the foosball table. I can also do this by using the selection tool. And there you go. That's how you crop. The eyedropper tool, this is basically used to identify a certain color. There's different options here. Also for crop tool 2, there's also the perspective tool, which can change the perspective of the composition. You can skew it. Okay, that's not actually a good example, but let me try going real intense here. This, I don't recommend doing this for any professional work, but yeah, it's taking a little while to load. You can literally warp, skew the image at your heart's desire. So next up is the Spot Healing Brush tool. Basically, this is a tool that can remove blemishes from certain pictures. So like one example could be you could have ketchup on your shirt. You can use this tool to remove the ketchup from the shirt. But for this example, we're going to do the steel poles on the foosball table. So we see all this rust right next to this guy. This is what we're going to do. Let's get rid of it like so. Now, the results from the spot brush tool isn't 100% accurate. As you can see, there's little bumps that get made. It's basically replicating whatever's around it. So like the railing on the right is using the clean parts of the steel to replace the rusty parts of the steel. So that's how it works. Change the brush size, change the hardness, similar to painting. Okay, so I changed to another picture to demonstrate the next couple of tools. The first thing I want to show you is the paint tool, and it just does what it does. It just paints. So if you use like Microsoft Paint, this might be similar to that, except it's a lot more customizable with the hardness of the brush, the size of it. So, yeah. Okay, we had our fun with that. There's also the pencil tool, which is a lot thinner, so I can probably use this for like drawing and such. Okay, there we go. That's a lot better. Okay, so the next tool is the clone stamp tool. This tool will allow you to duplicate certain parts of a picture. So like I want to have multiple tennis players. So all I'll do is hold down the Alt key, click on the tennis player. Hold on. Let me get closer. Then when I release my Alt key and click, I can have duplicates. Simple as that. You can change the size of the brush. You can change the hardness of the brush, similar to the paintbrush and the spot healing tool. All right, next up, the eraser tool. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. It erases things. So let me change my brush size. Woo! Oh, how scary! It erases things. Yeah. There's nothing really here to talk about. I mean, you can change the opacity and the flow of it, but you know. There's also paint bucket, which you can fill a color of similar values. But wait, what if you want to fill just one pixel? You can use a tolerance to lower the amount of colors being reached from the fill bucket. So it'll probably only take in the lighter blue only if you fill in the lighter blue. Okay, so I'm gonna skip ahead to the text tool. Basically, just you type in some text. You can change the size of it, the font. I'll put it over here. Looks nice. There's a shape tool. You can make a shape. You can change the stroke, the color, of course. The width and height, the radius too. So you can change the corner of the edges too by going over here and typing in a number. Okay, it's a nice basic graphic design. Yeah, and there's also the hand tool. I can't really demonstrate this with the entire image showing because when you zoom in, which I'm going to show you now, you can actually pan over the image with that hand. So that's basically what it does. I feel like I've skipped a couple of tools in the tool set, and the reason why I kind of skipped those because they're a little more advanced. Since the pen tool, the little cursors, I will talk about next time because those are a part of something else in Photoshop, which is illustration. So yeah, I'll see you then.